These two walls create what's called a cavity wall. I then fill that with concrete and reinforcement steel, and this creates the engineering strength that's going to hold this platform together. With all the wall part of this project complete, it was time to move on to the surfacing.
Close the door and leave the light on. The morning light should be coming soon. Kick off your shoes and leave the winter and the pain it brings to you. Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind.
One of the best parts about working in Gippsland, Victoria, located on the southern tip of Australia, is the beautiful landscape and scenery. And this project certainly makes the most of the beautiful rolling hills we have in our area. My client had created a beautiful garden on the slopes of their hilltop property. I'd spent many years cultivating beautiful plants, flowers and trees. It's a large, expansive garden, spread over acres on the hillside below their lakeside residence. My client wanted to make a focal point in this garden, sometimes referred to as a folly. It's a garden structure that's made for pure fun and whimsical enjoyment. It doesn't have any actual practical reason to be there, but creates a focal point in a large sprawling garden. The idea was to create a destination point so people could walk down to it from the main house, travelling through the beautiful garden along the way. It was also supposed to offer some protection from the elements and wind, as here in Gippsland we get a lot of wild weather. It also needed to be large enough for small family groups and friends to be able to gather and enjoy the garden. I wanted to talk about this structure we made here in this garden, sometimes called a garden folly. The idea was to create a space amongst all these beautiful plants and trees. This project came about because my customer had all these recycled pavers of various sizes. Most of them were this kind of size. So we came up with a plan to build a garden folly where my client's family could gather, have a fire and spend some time together and just enjoy the beautiful garden that they have planted all over this hillside. The whole thing's built out of recycled pavers, all brought up from the city over many years. They had a giant pile of pavers and they wanted to do some kind of project with it. So I had to reverse engineer the amount of pavers we had with the type of structure they wanted to have here. My customer had an open mind to what she wanted. A couple of the principles of the design were we had to do a big cutout in this hillside. So the retaining wall part is also the staircase, which adds a lot of strength to the retaining wall because of the step configuration from an engineering point of view. We had to do a cut and fill to create this platform, and this enabled our flat space we have down here. Once this platform was starting to be built, the customer thought she might like a fire pit in the middle, so we've added this fire pit in the very center of this enneagram shape. This is just made out of a piece of old farming equipment. The reason we came up with an enneagram shape was the customer had a bit of a fascination about enneagrams as a psychological evaluation tool, which was new to me. But anyway, I looked into the shape of an enneagram, which is like a 9-sided octagon, because of course octagon has 8 sides. This has 9 sides, so it's just an octagon with an extra side. It actually aligns with a full equilateral triangle, has a lot of sort of mysterious geometry, poetry to it. Wanting to work with what engaged my client, I designed it around this enneagram. The construction technique I used was to build retaining walls
or a formwork, placing the pavers behind it and then backfill it with concrete. We went up in single course layers, the same height as the steps, using the steps as a guide for each height we had to go up. And there's 9 steps, so I took 9 layers and then backfilling it with concrete with reinforcement mesh and steel to hold the whole thing together. The mortar between the pavers is actually bluestone and cement to give it a bit more of a rustic look, so it'd look like a sort of old temple ruin type structure. The rest of the flat area down here was made up of all the mixed different size pavers she had left over. So I came up with a couple of patterns to sort of create some symmetry and make it look tidy and neat.
Years ago, when I was young, before I knew my worth, I dreamed up ways to talk to you, but I never seemed to find the chance. And I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say. I remember that day you gave me a smile as I got closer to you. All I could do was talk about the weather and when we go back to school. I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say.
I started this project with a visit to the location where we're going to be building this garden folly. That's when I learned that this was going to be a tricky location, being located on the side of a hill with difficult access, especially in winter time where the ground's really muddy. My client already had a location picked out. It was going to be in the center of the garden on one of the lower terraces. She'd marked this area out to give us a sense of scale with a piece of carpet and plywood. They'd also transported all the recycled pavers right next to where we're going to be building it. I asked them to stack all the pavers neatly. This way I could measure and quantify them so we could come up with a design that was going to be able to use most of the pavers they had on hand. Once I had all this information, I was able to come up with a concept drawing. By adding some accurate numbers to a scale drawing, I could make sure that I was going to have enough pavers for the platform and the staircase. With my client approving the design, my next challenge was going to be the excavation for this construction. Building structures like this into a steep hillside involves a process called cut and fill. We need to do a cutout to fit the staircase retaining wall element. All the dirt we excavate from this process will be used to fill for the platform we're going to be building below. This is a walk-in site because of the slope, so everything had to be carried down. Got all my tools. Got my old faithful mixer. I've built my temporary staircase so I can access this hill slope, and today I'm going to excavate staircase platform viewing deck. Beautiful spot here in Gippsland Hills. It's more than enough pavers. I'm using a wood template form system, which is all pre-cut. The construction technique I'm using is a timber form system. I pre-cut all the timbers for this off-site in my workshop. We're going to use treated timber sleepers to create a mould for the pavers to form the walls. I'll be building the walls up in single layers. Each single course of pavers will match our step height in the staircase. One of the practical reasons for this process is how we handle the excavation of all this dirt. With this system, I can get some concrete and bricks in the ground as I'm excavating, which will help hold the hillside up as the construction continues.
Yeah, so I've got a roll-up tarp here to keep it protected from the rain because it's got some drainage issues. which is not uncommon in these hills. It's a bit like Swiss cheese, the water runs through these little tunnels. Anyway, I'm going to put a drain in so that way water can evacuate the system. Look at this thing here. Yeah, this feels like Swiss cheese. Water just runs out of it. As you can see, it's all wet. It's been draining all night. Yeah, so I've finished the drain system.
While digging out our foundation, I quickly ran into problems with water. We get a lot of rain here in winter in Gippsland. As I excavate deeper into the hill, I keep running into these little pockets of water which are flooding my job site. I've constructed a drainage system to help evacuate the water and set up a temporary plywood floor to help manage the mud.
Got the foundations in yesterday and just continue to build our wall up.
I poured the concrete foundation over the top of our drainage system and set reinforcement mesh in preparation for building our first course. Here you can see our drainage system exiting the concrete foundation and running down the hill. With the foundation set, we can start to lay our first course of paving bricks up against our timber forms. The timber forms follow the footprint of our structure, and we lay the bricks hard up against them, like in a mould. Here you can see me using a clamp to hold the brick close up against the timber as the cement sets behind it.
Well, the weather is definitely nasty. I just finished this one course. So I set up a tarp because at least I can duck under here and keep working. I'm going to get another course in today. These bricks along here. Keep chipping away at it.
By covering my work area with a tarp, I was able to continue building the courses up. After getting to 3 courses high, I pull the form timbers off so I can recycle them on the next level. It also gives me a good chance to check out how the wall's looking.
Yeah, so I've pulled the forms off for the first 3 courses. We get to see what the blocks looks like. 4th course up, concrete set.
As each row of bricks goes higher, I set lengths of reinforcement steel in the top of it so it'll bond to the following layer. I continue this process until we get 5 steps high. This brings us to the first flight of our staircase, and here you can see we're about halfway up the wall we need to complete.
Well, we got the beginning of the next staircase started.
I'm using the same timber sleepers to construct the upper staircase as we used in the lower staircase. This not only saves a lot of money in material cost, but also makes it a lot easier due to the difficulty of bringing materials onto this site.
Yeah, so the second part of the staircase is coming along. Yeah, so the basic double staircase is finished. Just got to pave these surfaces out. That's how we get up to the top of the hill.
With the retaining wall element of our folly complete, we can start the construction on the platform below. Instead of having a circular design for the platform, my client wanted to have an enneagram, or what's also known as a nonagon, a 9-sided polygram. To construct this kind of shape, I had to make a scale drawing and then build a custom jig form to help keep the pavers lined up in the right way to end up with the final shape.
Now we just build a retaining wall around this, flatten our dirt over it, pave it, and we're done. So I've kind of built this temporary scaffold around this bottom edge so I can build this wall inside this frame. This frame's just a guide.
On difficult locations like this, I often have to construct my own access paths. In this particular job, I had to build a temporary staircase, and now whilst we're building this enneagram platform, I needed to create a scaffold around the outside so I could access it safely and easy for the construction.
So the form's complete, the trench is dug now, build this wall.
Using the polygon frame as a guide, I've assembled the heavy timber sleepers to create the formwork that we'll set our bricks up against to create this platform. Using our timber form like a giant mould, I lay all the paving bricks hard up against it. Here you can see how I used wire to hold the paving bricks really close and tight to our form timbers. Once the outer perimeter is cemented in place, I build an inner wall with our scrap pavers, ones that are cracked or chipped. These two walls create what's called a cavity wall. I then fill that with concrete and reinforcement steel, and this creates the engineering strength that's going to hold this platform together. With all the wall part of this project complete, it was time to move on to the surfacing. This has two elements, the engineering side so it holds together and is strong, but also the aesthetics. Because this project's built out of recycled pavers, the plan was to not have to purchase any new pavers. So trying to work with the pavers we had on hand, I had to come up with some creative formulas to use up all the odd-shaped pavers so they could end up looking attractive, have some kind of symmetry, and fill all the spaces we needed to fill.
70 of these red bricks on site. There's 55 of these square rustic pavers. There's 21 of these brick-shaped pavers and 10 halves. 135 of these pavers left on site.
By counting and measuring all the different sizes and shapes of the pavers, I was able to come up with a plan. By using scale drawings on graph paper, I was able to figure out what patterns might work and fit into the space we have, and end up with a symmetrical and pleasing look to our structure.
We're laying out the pattern because we've got recycled pavers and trying to come up with some sort of symmetry. So I'm going to put 9, there's 10 of these, so I'll put 9 of them in the centre and then we'll sort of work our way out with a triangle in the middle over here.
With the pattern of the pavers figured out, I chose to use a system of setting these pavers on top of concrete. By working in sections defined by the geometry of our pattern, I laid the pavers directly onto the wet concrete that has reinforcement mesh underneath it to give it the kind of strength we'll need to hold this structure together.
So it's almost finished, just got to do sort of fill gaps and grind a bit of excess off, and basically all the principal construction is finished.
The final step in the completion of our garden folly was to fill the gaps in the pavers with the same mixture I used in the walls, a combination of bluestone dust and cement. The idea this would help unify all the odd-shaped pavers that were mixed together as one homogeneous surface.
So it's complete. Terrace stair platform.
Years ago, when I was young, before I knew my worth, I dreamed up ways to talk to you, but I never seemed to find the chance. And I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say. I remember that day you gave me a smile as I got closer to you. All I could do was talk about the weather and when we go back to school. I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say.
There was quite a few challenges involved in this project. The location and geography created some logistical difficulties, getting all the materials on site. Having a limited amount of recycled pavers to figure out what we're going to build was tricky. And of course the cold and windy winter of Gippsland didn't make it any easier. I have noticed though that when things are difficult to achieve, you can have a lot more satisfaction on the completion. In the end, I'm really satisfied how this construction came out, and I'm hoping people will be able to enjoy this garden space for many years to come.
Now I'm old and I think of that day those words I could only find as I sit by your side on our back porch. That day has never left my mind. And I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say. I remember that feeling, all the times I saw you smile. By the time I moved, you were almost gone. I'm glad you said more than hello.
Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.